So you know how we took away draws from ever happening again in major Siege competition? Remember how I used to always clown on Europe for having most of their games go to overtime? They still had a crap ton of games go to overtime comparative to other leagues in stage 1. Like, it just looks like they're picking up where they left off. Also, I guess it's true that European Challenger League breeds really good teams. BDS, Empire, Na'Vi, VIRTUS.PRO, and now we can add COWANA Gaming to that list, breaking into 3rd place overall in their rookie season in T1. Something is in the water across the Atlantic from me, and I don't know what it is, but I am all here for it. You know the drill. 9 play days later, this is where everyone stands after stage 1. Even though Na'Vi and BDS have the same amount of points and BDS have one more relegation win, Na'Vi won their head-to-head earlier in the stage, which means they take 1st place overall for stage 1. The aforementioned COWANA take 3rd place in a pretty surprise run, and Rogue managed to dig themselves out of a really big hole from last year and climb from dead last into 4th place. Every time I say they're doing good, I somehow curse them and they tank again, so I'm just going to shut up and let Leon enjoy this W. G2 looks a little different without Pengu, so they will take 5th. VIRTUS.PRO had a hard start, but a lot of necessary wins at the back end of the stage for 6th. Vitality were in top 4 contention for most of the stage, but failed to punch above 7th. Trainhard had a 7-game losing streak. Empire looked about as bad as they did in stage 1 of last year, and Secret... Okay, just from looking at this list, I think Na'Vi, BDS, and Trainhard were probably the only teams I expected to sit relatively at these positions before the stage even began. Everyone else, I'm a little bit shocked by, and that can be both good and bad. Everything looked pretty normal for the EUL, like we didn't have a crazy format change aside from adding overtime, which is good because it means we're helping to normalize what the format looks like in every region. So this was just another stage for the EUL. But just remember that this entire landscape might have looked way different if we still had draws. Like Vitality especially, because they had more games go to overtime than they did wins in regulation. So if they had draw points as opposed to overtime win points, then their placement might have looked way different than it does currently. When overtime was added, this was the region that I was hoping it would make the biggest impact, and I think it did overall. NATUS VINCERE, NATUS VINCERE, NATUS VINCERE.
NATUS VINCERE.
Yeah, I'm not saying it like that. They're in 1st place, which is like the first time they've won anything big since the Tokoname finals in November 2019. It is a scary thing to make 2 sweeping changes like that, especially in the IGL getting replaced, but these guys only dropped 2 games in stage 1. One of them was an overtime barn burner to Vitality, and the other one was in the last playday when they already knew they had secured 1st place. That is a stellar comeback from where these guys were from last year, and these guys should be proud. Plus 512 SI points for next year. These guys are just growing up right in front of me. BDS just did BDS things all stage long. I have it written in my script, insert BDS takes it joke here, but I didn't really think of anything, so insert BDS takes it referenced here.
BDS takes it!
Yeah, I'm happy. They had a 4-game win streak going until they met Na'Vi, then dropped their last 2, but they still definitely look like themselves. Shiko tied for most kills during the stage and was rated 2nd overall, and nobody on that team dropped below a 1.0 rating on SiegeGG. Like, not even Na'Vi can say that. They played great. COWANA made the leap from EUCL to 3rd place, which again is just continuing that trend of teams from EUCL becoming really, really good in their 1st stage in T1. They bring in Kendrew for Kayak and then springboard up into the top 4, which is also impressive considering they lost their first 3 and then exploded during their last 6. They were also the only team to shut out any other team this stage when they smothered Trainhard 7-0 on day 4 to begin that 6-game win streak. I would like to believe that this isn't a fluke, but that run at the very end was mighty impressive. Rogue, though, Rogue, dead last with 0 wins last stage, then somehow win a majority of their games in this stage. All hail our new god Meepy. I mean, he was already great, but he managed to get in there and helped Rogue correct course in a massive way. When you're in a slump like Rogue was at the back end of last year, being able to reverse your mentality and get back on track matters a lot. So adding Meepy and a team performance psychologist onto that team looks like it's worked wonders for these guys. 4th place locked up. G2 in 5th, for me, isn't a sign that these guys are dead or they can't perform up to standard or anything. That's not what this means. It was actually a pretty good rookie stage for Kayak, coming in on a support role his first stage and having 6 1vx clutches, which I think is the most of any other player in the EUL for the stage. But it does make me a little bit concerned for Kanto, I guess. Citizen was the best performing player in the whole league this stage and was playing on some of those roles that Kanto used to play back in the day. So I guess he doesn't have to worry about doing as much. I don't know. 5th place isn't bad for G2. VIRTUS.PRO, though, is kind of a heartbreak story for me. They had so many games come down to overtime this stage. They won their first one against Empire, then lost their next 3, 2 of which were back-to-back. Like, what do you even do at that point, right? Like, you're doing everything right up until the very, very, very last second. Like, they look better than a 6th place team to me, especially with Milan tying Shaiko for overall kills. Yeah. They're definitely better than 6th place in my head. Vitality, unfortunately, did the opposite. They ditched the super team idea, make a lot of roster moves before the stage starts, show up big in their overtime games, but still have the same placements as their international roster did from last year. I think switching over to full French has its upside for these guys, but you gotta break out of the bottom half of EU at some point, right? I keep wanting this org to have a good team. I'm blowing out my mic, aren't I? But they keep making roster changes before their team can actually really settle. Like, it's every 6 months they go and change some other player out and think that it's going to work, and then it doesn't, and then they make the same changes 6 months down the road again. So I'm going to pray that they settle down and give these guys a chance to work with one another before making another change, because it's literally every 6 months that they need to make some adaptation. So let's see what they do. Traynard did not seem like a team I could get behind when they came into the EUL. Like, it's just a hodgepodge of French players all trying to make something work, and they just didn't impress me at all. Spark had the least amount of kills and the worst KD differential in the league. Blaz and Neura both underperformed. Like, yeah, that's just it. Empire, though. What? I don't understand this team. They have, big periods of success, like winning CL, Milan, and Raleigh all back to back to back. Then they fall off for a year until the November major, and they beat BDS in 2 straight maps in the grand final. And now they're back here in the bottom 3 of the league again. Like, I'll take nothing away from Shepard. Like, he had a good stage, but he wasn't even the highest rated player on his team, and they only won 3 games all stage. It's like they're either the best or the worst team in Europe. Like, there's no middle ground anymore. They either rule the world or they suck. And right now, somehow it's the latter. Luckily, they're not all the way at the bottom. That is 2 wins and no overtime appearances at all. They did the opposite of what Rogue did this stage. They went from a top 4 contender to dead last. Like, that's the opposite of what you want to do. I don't want to be that guy, but Packbull really died for this. I don't know if it has anything to do with Sleben and Gomfy not being able to make a transition from the NA style, where they were for so long, back into a European style, or what it is. Needless to say, I am not impressed so far. That all to say, though, I think the EUL after this stage is in a really good spot. Like, we have teams bouncing up and down. Like, it's also as unpredictable as any of the other regions can be on any given day, but this is now beginning to solidify that BDS are one of the better, more consistent teams in the EUL. Na'Vi can kind of go up or down, but hopefully can stay within that top 4 bracket, and teams like G2 and VIRTUS.PRO have some things that they need to figure out because they had some pretty pivotal pieces of their rosters leave heading into this stage. However, I'm going to hope that we cannot use this stage of the EUL to kind of get like a preview of what these teams are going to look like heading into SI, because like the NAL, only one team that is heading to SI from this region actually placed in the top 4. Only one. In fact, the only thing I think I can really say is that if you are a Team Empire fan, you should be concerned. Everyone else, you might be saving something for SI, but if you're Empire, I do not know what that was. I'm sorry. If you watched Stage 1 of 2021 for the EUL, let me know what you thought of everything in the comments. Was there somebody who impressed you, disappointed you? Also, let me know if you're interested in like a LATAM or an APAC recap. I don't follow them as much, but I probably still could whip something together if I tried. And everything else is just the social media. Follow Twitter, follow Twitch, subscribe, and all that jazz I never tell you to do because I probably should.